Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters. I mean, the sort of comme j'ai dit.
But Lisa, I mean, it is those two words that I think everybody is really gleaning onto. Who cares? And really that, flippant, dismissive, use the term that you want. But it really seems like in that moment, he is just sitting there going, why are you even asking me this question? And then there's that shift when we come back to Ottawa.
Yeah. I got to say that there are two gifts to the Conservative Party of Canada this week. One was the announcement that Steve Edehouse is going to be the campaign manager for the next election. And the second was that soundbite. Who cares? I mean, wow, what an error in terms of serving something up. And trust me, they're going to make a meal out of that over and over and over again. I mean, it's really tough. I know it can be frustrating in the moment, but you do have to remember that everything you say is going to get clipped.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things, your last word for your Tuesday. And boy, oh boy, let's talk about the leadership of this country of Canada we love so much. Because apparently in 2025, leadership now means snapping at reporters, rolling your eyes at questions about the most important trade relationship Canada has, and muttering, who cares? Who cares? Like a bored toddler who got told it's bedtime. Who cares? Who cares? Over the weekend, Prime Minister Mark Carney, we all saw it, the man who wants you to believe that he's the adult counterweight to Donald Trump, was asked a perfectly legitimate question by a reporter. When was the last time, or when do you plan to speak to the President of the United States again? It wasn't a trick, not a trap, not a gotcha moment, just a basic, obvious question for a Prime Minister during a full-blown trade war. And what does he say? Who cares? Who cares? I'll tell you who cares, Mark. Every steel worker in Hamilton, every sawmill operator in British Columbia, every auto parts manufacturer in Ontario, every farmer relying on cross-border markets, every business owner whose livelihood is caught in the crossfire of this BS, they care. The markets care. The provinces care. Our premiers care. And the world cares, because the Canada-US relationship is not some little side quest in a video game. It is Canada's economy. But hey, Mark Carney says it's just a detail, all of this. Just leave it alone. Forget it. Don't worry that I said that. A detail like misplacing your car keys, right? Or forgetting to return a library book, perhaps? Not the single most important diplomatic relationship we have as a country, surely not. Not the one that determines whether thousands of Canadians even have jobs in 2026. No, just a detail. Who cares? He said it himself, who cares? And his supporters rushed out instantly like a volunteer fire brigade of liberal excuses to say, oh, he didn't mean he doesn't care about the economy or tariffs. He was just, annoyed with the line of questioning by the reporter. My guy, that doesn't make it better. That makes it worse. Because if he loses his cool this easily, if he cracks in public like this every time a reporter presses him even slightly, what does he do behind closed doors when things actually get stressful? When negotiations get heated with your counterpart? When real decisions need to be made? That's not brave elbows up leadership, as Thomas Mulcair bizarrely claimed on CTV last night. It's not taking on a guy who behaves like a 10-year-old as he described Trump. It's behaving like a 4-year-old yourself. Let's be honest here. You don't get to call the President of the United States childish, Mulcair, while simultaneously our Prime Minister is shouting, who cares, like a frustrated preschooler denied a second juice box at lunch. This is the same Mark Carney who barked back at Rosemary Barton to look inside herself instead of answering a factual question. This is the same Mark Carney who has repeatedly snapped, particularly at women reporters, anytime they ask something he doesn't like. And this is the same Mark Carney who promised diplomacy, professionalism, and restoring trust in his election campaign. But now he can't even get through a G20 press scrum without losing his marbles. But wait, it gets even better, because if who cares was really nothing, if it really was just a heat of the moment blurting, then why did he magically change his schedule and suddenly plan a trip to Washington next week? And why did all of that get leaked out? Why did the PMO sprint to leak to every outlet in this country that he's considering flying down to talk to Donald Trump next week? I'll tell you why. Damage control. Textbook, predictable, embarrassing, disgusting damage control. One thing the liberals are starting to learn how to do very well because they constantly have to do it. Carney wasn't planning a trip. He wasn't preparing to meet Trump, but the second he publicly dismissed the trade file, the second he shrugged off the question, the conservatives pounced as they should. Canadians reacted negatively as they should, and Washington raised their eyebrows as they should, and suddenly the Prime Minister, who said, "Who cares?" seems to care a whole heck of a lot. This isn't leadership, guys. This is a kid getting lippy with daddy, realizing he crossed the line, and now he's slunking his way down the stairs and mumbling an apology to him before the grounding gets even worse here. He's not going to Washington because he wants to. He's going because he now has to. He screwed the whole damn thing up again. But let's not let Dougie Ford off the hook for this screw up either, because this is where the whole thing turns into political slapstick comedy now at this point. We remember that the Premier of Canada's largest province spent $75 million in taxpayer money on an ad criticizing tariffs in the United States. Not even a good ad, not even an accurate ad, not even an effective ad. It did nothing. An ad that managed to torch our trade talks, that's, I guess, the one thing it did, irritate the piss out of the White House and set relations back by months, but it made Doug Ford feel like a big man. The same premier who dumped Crown Royal whiskey down a drain on live television as some kind of protest against Donald Trump, not taxes, not regulations, but tariffs, which his little $75 million tantrum and stunt actually made worse. Who exactly is the adult in the room in our country anymore? A guy pouring whiskey into the gutter, the guy lighting $75 million on fire for an attack ad, or the guy muttering, "Who cares?" when he's asked about the fallout? I mean, is this even real? Because look, this entire thing, the ad, the canceled trade talks, the G20 meltdown, it all proves that nobody in Canada's so-called elite leadership class is behaving like a grown-up, Thomas. They're behaving like a collection of cranky kindergartners who accidentally skipped nap time. And the media, ooh, the media, it's not just Thomas Mulcair. They desperately want to spin this as nothing. He's new to politics, they say. This is just elbows up leadership. It shows he's not intimidated by the Donald. I'm sorry, what? Losing your temper at a reporter isn't strength. Saying who cares about the most important economic file in the country isn't strategy. If the best defense of a prime minister is he's new at this job, then maybe, just maybe, he shouldn't have the job in the first place. If you need a learning curve, become a barista, Mark. Don't run a G7 economy during a trade war. Let's also talk about the world stage, because leaders around the world pay attention to these moments. They study character, temperament, self-control. Who cares? Wasn't said at a pizza party. It was said at the G20, in a room full of cameras, surrounded by world leaders, in front of international media. You want to talk reputational damage to this country? There you have it. You want to talk global consequences? Imagine being a company considering investing in this country, considering investing in Canada, and watching the Prime Minister dismiss the fate of your supply chain as just a detail. Imagine being an ally, trying to gauge whether this guy can actually handle complex negotiations. Imagine being an adversary, analyzing how easy it is to rattle him and watching this. And now the Prime Minister is scrambling to show he actually does care. The PMO leaks miraculously that CTV, don't worry everyone, spin that sudden diplomatic pivot that he's going down to the US, all because he can't control his temper for 5 seconds. Imagine being Donald Trump watching this unfold. Do you think he's intimidated? No, he's laughing. He's scraping by, laughing. He's thinking, this guy's easy. This is going to be a cakewalk. Because Trump didn't end trade talks over nothing. He ended them because Doug Ford decided to run an attack ad in America like some budget brand political action committee, and because Carney let the provinces run wild without an actual plan. And instead of managing the fallout, Carney said, "Who cares? Who cares?" And now he has to go fix it. I don't know if he's going to be able to. Let's land this plane, shall we? All right. Because, look, here's the thing. The who cares moment, as small as it might seem to some of you, reveals everything. It reveals a prime minister losing patience with the press. It reveals a leader who is not as composed as he pretended to be. It reveals a government stretched so thin, irritated, defensive, and cornered. It reveals a man who is not used to being challenged, who lashes out when confronted, and who cannot keep his cool when the stakes are high. And most importantly, Canada, it reveals a leader whose supporters will defend anything, absolutely anything, no matter how childish, as long as it keeps their team in power. Because that's all liberals have ever cared about, is power. This was not a nothing burger. This was a character moment. It was a temperament moment. It was a judgment moment. And the world saw it. Canada saw it. We all saw it. And if Mark Carney doesn't get a grip on his emotions or get serious about the most important file in his entire cabinet, then we're all going to be saying, who cares? Right? When the next round of tariffs hit, when jobs disappear, when negotiations collapse again, and when the guy who told us he was the adult in the room turns out to be the least mature of them all, we're all going to throw our arms up and just go, who cares? Because what else do you do? In politics, who cares is not an answer. It's a giant warning sign. Thanks for watching Bakes on Things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, join that conversation down below. I want to hear it. I know you're mad. I want to hear it. I want to hear all of it. Put it down below. And we will catch you tomorrow morning on the first sip at 6 a.m. for your Wednesday. But for now, have yourselves a wonderful finish to your Tuesday.